hope you're okay. Welcome back to the Mind Muscle Connection, and this week we are on to part 2 of the Psycho-cybernetics book by Maxwell Maltz. Now, I hope you enjoyed last week's episode. If you haven't listened to it or watched it, go ahead and listen to that and watch that first before you come back to this one. And I'm sorry to kind of stop you and then send you somewhere else, but it's really key that you start to understand that from the beginning of this book, we're having to delve in deep within ourselves and learn about ourselves and how our brain works and how we're functioning, so then we can start to apply the second section that we're going to get into today. And I think this is probably going to be the better section of the two so far. Okay, so we're on to section number 6, or chapter 6. And chapter 6 is relax and let your success mechanism work for you. And one thing we've got to realize with this is the success mechanism can only work if we just get out of the way and let it do its thing. So many times in life we get in our own way and it stops us from actually being creative. It stops us being successful because we're worrying. We're spending too long thinking, and the whole paralysis of analysis tends to come into play here. So we've got to be really careful with this one. Okay, so we're on to chapter number 6, relax and let your success mechanism work for you. And the first one is worry before you place your bet. Okay, so do your worrying before you place your bet, not after the wheel starts turning. Now, how many times have you made a decision, and as soon as you've made that decision, whether it's impulse or whether it's calculated, you've started worrying about it? And I've done this in the past as well, okay? And what we find here is, once we've made a decision, we can't then worry about what the outcome is going to be because we've already decided to do it. And that's what he's talking about in this book. One of the examples was a gambler who found himself placing bets and then worrying as it was going on. And what he realised was, you can't worry about something that you've already decided to do. So worry before you place your bet, not after the wheel starts turning. And the wheel was just a roulette that this gambler was addicted to. But we do get into that frame of mind where we will worry once we've made a decision to do something. And it's saying here that actually do all your worrying before you make the decision. Because the worrying is going to allow you to think through all the possibilities, all the negatives, the positives that could come from making that decision. But once you've actually decided to go and do it, don't worry. Because what you'll do is you'll find a way. Get out of your way, the success mechanism will go to work for you. Okay, so that was the first one. Number 2 was respond to the present. Okay, and it's form the habit of consciously responding to the present moment. We're so often, I bet you've experienced it before, where maybe something's happened and you've had a conversation about it a week later and somebody's given you a new perspective and a new way of thinking about it, and it was like, I could have done with that a week ago. Or you've thought of a response a week after something's happened, and it's like sometimes we get too caught up in trying to analyse once it's happened that we don't ever allow ourselves to think enough in the moment to respond to something. So the first thing is think before you speak. I think we were all taught that as a kid growing up, but certainly allow yourself to respond to that present moment. Try not to respond to things that are going to happen in the future. Try not to respond to things that have happened in the past. Take the time, think, calculate, and then respond to what's happening around you at that moment in time. Okay, and that was a big one for me. Okay, respond to the present moment. Okay, one at a time, and I think we're all pretty guilty of this at moments in time. Try to only do one thing at a time. We all try and multitask. We all try and multitask in our day-to-day lives, in our work, in our relationships. I'm terrible for trying to have a conversation with someone while I'll be texting someone else. And I sometimes have to stop the conversation for a moment while I respond to a message. And it's not that the person in front of me is less meaningful than the person on the other end of the phone, but maybe it's a work thing that I just need to get done. Maybe it's a personal thing that I just need to send, and then I can get back to the conversation and be present. So I'm always trying to make sure now that I've become more aware of this after this book, and kind of recently looking, I don't want to say judging myself, but looking at myself and how I perform. You can't send a text message and be fully engaged in a conversation. It just doesn't work. So do one thing at a time. If it is send a text message that's relatively important, or it is important, send a text message and then get back to the conversation. But let the person know that you're sending that message, and just say, hey look, I'm not listening right now, I'm just responding to this message, give me a second and I'll be back with you. because that says that, hang on a minute, you care a lot and I care about what you're saying a lot, that I just need to do this thing first and then I can give you my full attention. And that's a lot better than trying to do the two at once and getting no response. Guys, I'm pretty sure you've had it where you've been doing something else, your missus has said something, and then all of a sudden she's kicked off at you. This is what we're talking about here. Let them know that you are quickly doing something, you'll be back in a second and you'll be fully present with them. They'll appreciate it a lot. Relationship advice for you there. Okay, number 4, sleep on it. If you have a problem that you are struggling to solve, if you have an issue that you are struggling to solve at work, or maybe it's a business thing, maybe it's I don't want to say a relationship thing, because sometimes with the relationships you want to obviously talk them out there and then, but sleep on the problem. So write it down, go to bed, sleep on it, because what you'll find is your success mechanism and your creative mechanism within your brain is actually going to work to find the problem. I know that there was people in past, like history, I think it was Henry Ford. He said that he used to write down all his notes before he slept, and then went to bed, and then when he woke up he would actually find that he'd answered the problems. And it's like, well, why aren't we doing that now? What is it about us that we're trying to consistently and consciously be switched on even when we're trying to go to sleep? How about we just switched off and just let our brain think without us having to consciously control it? So sleep on it was a good one. Sometimes just write it down before you go to bed, wake up the next day, and you may actually have an answer. Your brain is clever that way, and it will work while you're not consciously aware of it. And the final one is relax at work. Okay, relax while you work. When we go to work, work is basically a way of solving problems. Work is a way of dealing with issues. But so often we get so consciously controlling, trying to figure out how to solve this problem, that we're not relaxed. We're not allowed to think creatively. And that word's probably going to get used a lot during the 3 episodes of this book, but to be able to think clearly, to be able to think or process information effectively to a really good standard, we need to relax. We need to let it just do its thing, okay? We need to just kind of step out of the way and let our brain go to work to solve the problems. So relax at work. And the other thing you're going to find with that is there's less stress, okay? Because you're dealing with the problems as they arise. You're doing one thing at a time, you're doing it, responding to the present, but you're relaxed and you're able to process information, you're able to get through a lot more. That is it for chapter number 6. We're going to head over to chapter number 7, and this is where it starts to get good. Okay, chapter 7, and we are moving on to you can acquire the habit of happiness. Okay, and this is a big chapter because in a second it's about to lead on to the success mechanism and what makes up a success mechanism, okay? But the habit of happiness is where we are now, and this was a big chapter for me. This was a very big chapter for me, and I'll kind of go into the reason why in a second. But the first one is, happiness is a state of mind. Happiness is not something that is earned or deserved. Happiness is simple, a state of mind in which our thinking is pleasant and good share of the time. Now, I'm going to leave it there for that one, because when I get to the third one, certainly the second one as well, okay, it is just a state of mind. You can be happy at any moment, whenever you want, you can be happy, okay? The second one, happiness is selfish or wrong. It's simply not true, okay? Many people, including myself, and I've even kind of written in the book here, including myself, because I know that this is me, are deterred from seeking happiness because they feel that it would be selfish or wrong. How many times have we said to someone that we love, maybe our family members, maybe our closest friends, that we only wish them to be happy? But we never wish happiness upon ourselves. And this is something that I've always done. I've always wanted other people to be happy and make sure that they're good. And sometimes it's because we don't feel we should have it, because other people will feel bad that we have and they don't. But it is down to ourselves to look after our own happiness. I can't force someone else to be happy because that's free will. They have to do that. They have to choose to be happy themselves. And you can't change that within people. You only have to let them know that, hey, look, I'm going to do everything I can to be happy for me. And in turn, that is going to allow me to be the best version of myself, or the natural version of myself, that is then going to interlink with what you do, and you're going to be happy because of that. So it's really weird, and it's really hard to kind of come to terms with the fact that happiness isn't a selfish or a wrong thing to want for ourselves. Okay, so happiness isn't selfish, and I think we should all be striving to be happy, certainly within ourselves, but for ourselves as well. So the third one is happiness is internal. Now, like I said a minute ago, happiness is purely internal. It is produced not by objects, but by ideas, thoughts and attitudes, which can be developed and constructed by the individual's own activities, irrespective of environment. We've all wanted the Christmas gift because it thought it was going to bring us happiness. Did it bring us happiness? Yeah, maybe in the short term, but in the long term, it just became another object. Irrespective of your environment, you can be happy. I've heard stories in the past of people who had absolutely no money, no wealth, but they were really happy. I heard of people who are millionaires, multimillionaires, billionaires, who are miserable because they just know that what they've got isn't serving them, because it's never it's never the having of material objects that bring us happiness in the long term. Yes, okay, in the short term it may do. Buying a brand new car would obviously bring us happiness at a while, but after a period of time it's going to fade, because it just becomes another thing that we have, and then we want the next thing. Like, people buy cars, within a year they want to buy a new car because a new model's come out, and it's like, well, that's not happiness. Happiness is coming from problem solving. It's coming from making sure that we're creatively thinking, we're doing the activities that are stimulating us, that are creating memories. Memories are a big one for happiness, because when we have those kind of we remember those things, and those like holidays or activities that we've done with family members or friends, and that brings us happiness, and we feel good for that. So happiness is internal. We control our own happiness, and you can't control someone else's happiness because it's all on them. So number 4 here, happiness is a symptom of normal functioning. Happiness is a symptom of normal, natural functioning, and when man is functioning as a goal striver, he tends to feel fairly happy regardless of circumstance. Now, that's basically saying it doesn't matter who you are or where you are or what you have, as long as you are functioning as a goal striver, which humans are designed to do, and irrespective of your circumstance, environment, you can be happy. So wherever you are, if you're making improvements to yourself, you're achieving goals at work, personal, relationships, spiritual, friendships, that you are going to feel happy, and that's all we ever want. Number 5, self-image grows from new habits. So when we consciously and deliberately develop new and better habits, our self-image tends to outgrow the old habits and grow into the new pattern. If ever we want to become somebody else, or a better version of ourselves, should I say, we have to consciously change habits and routines that are going to make us better. Now, that may take time. It may take a long time. It may take a very short time. But if you consciously develop those habits over time, you are going to become a better version of you. You are going to become the best version of you. There's no such thing as perfect. I have to remind myself of this, because we're always striving for that, but we're never going to achieve it. So how about we just aim to be better every day? And timelines are going to differ. I'm not going to lie, timelines are going to differ. And it depends where you are in your journey. Maybe you're starting this in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s. You might be starting it in your teens. Hopefully we've got some teen listeners, and they're taking this information on board and thinking, right, I'm going to be the best version I can be from now on. And they're starting earlier than others. So if we can create new habits, create new routines, our self-image and who we are grows. And that's all we ever want through life. We want to be growing. If we're not growing, we're dying. We're falling backwards, we're degrading, we're not getting better. And we shouldn't be going through life not growing and not becoming a better version of ourselves, a stronger version of ourselves. So we need to now start to take control of understanding where we are, what we need to change, and start implementing stuff. Start implementing new routines and new habits. Maybe one habit a week, maybe one habit a month. But over the course of 12 months, that's 12 habits you could have changed. Where could you be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? And I'll kind of revert to Gary Vaynerchuk's comments here. I'm 29. In 10 years' time, I'm still going to be 39, and that's young. So in 10 years' time, if I changed 12 habits over the course of 1 year, if I do that over 10 years and I do 120 habits that have grown, who am I going to be in 10 years' time? I really want to find out and kind of see who that person is. So what can you change this month? What can you change this year that could make you a new person for next year? And start now. Don't wait until the New Year's resolutions. Do it now, and where could we be? I'll leave it with that. Right folks, we are on to number 8. And we are discussing the ingredients of the success type personality and how to acquire them. And success was an acronym in this chapter. Okay, so success stands for sense of direction, understanding, courage, compassion, esteem, self-confidence, and self-acceptance. And for each one, they had a chapter for each part of the acronym. So sense of direction. A bicycle maintains its poise and equilibrium only so long as it is going forward towards something. Now, if you imagine a bicycle, if we're cycling, if we're pedaling, the bike stays relatively balanced, okay? It's not moving around too much and it's just going nice and freely. As soon as you start to slow down, you stop pedaling, as it's getting slower and slower and slower, it's going to start to wobble around and move around a lot more. And we find that we fall off because we have no sense of direction. We have no idea what we're working towards. So man is very much like a bicycle. We need to be working towards a goal. But that goal is going to help us. Okay? So sense of direction was the first one. Understanding was the second one. Okay, so understanding depends on good communication. Communication is vital to any guidance system or computer. You cannot react appropriately if the information you act on is faulty or misunderstood. So you need to understand the information. C, courage. Having a goal and understanding the situation are not enough. You must have the courage to act, for only by actions and can goals, desires and beliefs be translated into realities. So we've got compassion. Successful personalities have some interest in and regard for other people. They have a respect for others' problems and needs. They respect the dignity of human personality and deal with other people as if they were human beings rather than pawns in their own game. So I'm just kind of running through these. Esteem. Esteem is probably one of the biggest ones, and I'm just going to read you the prescription here. Stop carrying around a mental picture of yourself as a defeated, worthless person. Stop dramatising yourself as an object of pity and injustice. Be confident within yourself. You have the ability, and you know that you can achieve stuff if you put your mind to it. So you should do that. Self-confidence. Confidence is built upon an experience of success. When we first begin to any undertaking, we are likely to have little confidence because we have not learned from experience that we can succeed. This is true of learning to ride a bike, okay, speaking in public, or performing surgery. It is literally true that success breeds success. So you need to get some level of success, but your confidence will start to build when you do. Now, when we invariably don't succeed at something, we're going to start to doubt ourselves, but we need to be able to stop and look and learn from our failures. It doesn't make us a failure, we just failed at something. So we now need to look at, okay, what can I take from it? Build on that, create success. And finally, the last one, so self-confidence was the first S. Second S is self-acceptance. No real success or genuine happiness is possible until a person gains some degree of self-acceptance. The most miserable and tortured people in the world are those who are continually straining and striving to convince themselves and others that they are something other than what they basically are. So we've got to be willing to accept ourselves, okay? And that was the success type mechanism. So I'm going to go through the notes that I made here, and the first one is a good personality. A good personality is one that enables you to deal effectively and appropriately with environment and reality, and to gain satisfaction from reaching goals that are important to you. Okay? We've got our own goals. We have our own goals. Now, you may have goals for yourself, you may have goals for your couple, you may have goals for your company. We all have our own goals, and individual goals are okay. As long as individual goals work for your company, that's going to make your company a lot better. But we all have individual goals, okay? So our personality, or a good personality, is one that enables you to deal effectively and appropriately with environment and reality. We have to just be able to deal with what is in front of us, okay? The second one, life is not worthwhile. And the reason why I've put it at that is because a lot of people say that. People who say that life is not worthwhile are really saying that they themselves have no personal goals that are worthwhile. If you have something that is worthwhile, you are going to see life as worthwhile. Now, the big thing that I always say to myself, I say to others, is my life is about producing content for people. It's about producing content that they're going to relate to, they're going to learn from, and they're going to grow because of it. And that is what I want for people. So whenever I'm producing content, it's like, okay, is this content going to help people? If it is, great, it needs to go out. If it's not going to help people and it's just personal stuff, sometimes I pretty much discard it and I don't post it. Not that I'm trying not to be a personal kind of character, but I just don't feel like it's enough content to help people. And this is where I sometimes get in my own way, and I should probably just produce the content anyway. But my goal is always to produce content and information to help people. And that's what we're looking at with these podcasts and these videos. So, number 3, don't dodge problems. All problems, personal, national or combat, become small if you don't dodge them but confront them. And I like this bit. Touch a thistle timidly and it pricks you. Grasp it boldly and its spines crumble. I can't get into my head that I should just grab it because I just think it's going to hurt. Whereas that just needs to change. If we go into a problem and we're kind of just trying to just do a little bit, I don't know what that sound was, but if we're trying to just barely scratch the surface and see what kind of reaction we're going to get, it's not going to be a positive one. Whereas if we just go straight in and just take hold of the situation and just get to work and put the effort in, and like it says, grasp it boldly, we're going to see a great return on that. So number 4, nothing is certain in this world. Nothing in this world is ever absolutely certain or guaranteed. Often the difference between a successful man and a failure is not one's better abilities or ideas, but the courage that he has, or one has, to bet on his ideas, to take a calculated risk and to act. How many times have you seen it where a successful person is standing up in front of a crowd, or they're in a video and people are like, oh, you've been gifted this, you've been gifted that, and this has worked out because you've done this and you've kind of been given this. It's never kind of, people never look at the work that's gone into it. They only ever see the success, and it's like, oh yeah, it was given to you, it was handed to you, or you stumbled upon it, you've not had to work for it. Well, the big thing I'm going to say here is, it was the courage that they had to jump on something. It was the ability to act, maybe take a calculated risk, or having an idea that says, right, this is what I'm going to go and do. The last one is ditch the negative thoughts. Now, we can just as easily delete negative thoughts from our minds as we can delete documents by dragging them into the trash on our computer screen. Just like we can get rid of stuff on our computers, we can ditch negative thoughts in just the same way. We have to consciously do it though. And the problem we have is we're not aware of our negative thoughts and our negative actions enough that we can get rid of them. So become more aware of what it is that you're saying or thinking negatively, and then get rid of it and change it and start talking more positively. Take charge and just go forward with your ideas and your beliefs, and you will see that you start to change your inner world, but you also start to change your outer world as well. Okay, so chapter 9 is failure mechanism, how to make it work for you instead of against you. And so many times in life we've failed at something, haven't analysed it, and then gone and done the same thing again and failed again. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at using the failure mechanism that we're going to outline here for us rather than against us. Okay, so the first one in the acronym failure is frustration. Frustration is an emotional feeling that develops whenever some important goal cannot be realized or when some strong desire is thwarted. We learn to tolerate a certain amount of frustration without upset. It's okay to get frustrated. What we've got to do is without turning it to upset. Don't let the frustration that you are feeling stop you from achieving your goals. Turn it into a positive and use that frustration as energy to push forward and push harder, work harder, okay? Because it will work. The second one is aggression. Excessive and misdirected aggressiveness follows frustration as night follows day. Aggressiveness itself is not an abnormal behaviour pattern as some psychiatrists once believed. Turn that aggression around and direct it towards what you're trying to achieve. It is going to be an amazing kind of energy. If you've ever seen it, maybe in like a boxing match or in a UFC fight, and I'm using this as an example is because these are quite aggressive sports, but if you ever see someone get aggressive in the ring, how much energy do they start to bring to the fight and the passion that comes out, that they're trying to defend themselves and they're throwing more and more at it to try and win. And that aggressiveness is being directed in a positive way. It's not being directed in a negative way. It happens in sports, but it's been put into a goal, something that you want to achieve, and you can see the passion coming out in that aggressiveness. And that's what we're looking at here. Whatever your goal is, if you do start to get a little bit frustrated and you can start to feel the emotion building up in you, turn it on its head, direct it, and send it towards that goal, because it's going to be an amazing achievement. And you'll find actually it's going to feel really good once you've got it. Okay, so that aggressiveness can be used as a positive energy. The next one is insecurity. So the I in failure is insecurity. The feeling of insecurity is based on a concept or belief of inner inadequacy. If you feel that you do not measure up to what is required, you feel insecure. But the thing is, this is our own brain creating this measurement stick, like we spoke about earlier in the chapters. Where insecurity comes from our own measuring. Now, who are we measuring ourselves by? Is it by someone else's standards or is it our own? So insecurity comes around by trying to measure up to someone else's standards. So make sure that you're concentrating on living up to what you believe is possible and what you believe you should be doing, and you're going to find with that you're going to be a lot stronger, you're going to be a lot more secure, and your failure mechanism isn't actually going to get tainted with the idea that you're not going to measure up at all. So next we're looking at loneliness. All of us are lonely at times. Again, it is a natural penalty we pay for being human and individual. It is the extreme and chronic feeling of loneliness, of being cut off and alienated from other people, that is a symptom of the failure mechanism. Oftentimes, loneliness is created by ourselves. It links in with the inadequacy or the insecurity. When we think that we are inadequate, we don't measure up to society's standards, we feel lonely. We cut ourselves off. Maybe we don't go to social engagements. Maybe we don't create friendships. We don't create connections with people. And we find ourselves just constantly staying within our own little bubble that we never actually socialize. We never actually grow. We never actually learn about people and what makes them tick and how we can help them. And all of a sudden it's a case of most people that are feeling lonely have created that over a period of time, that they don't see that the loop and the spiral that they've kind of encountered was done by their own choosing. And it is a choice, okay? We're all choosing to kind of put ourselves in that position. And it's us that has to choose to bring ourselves out of it. Okay, so number 5 is uncertainty. Uncertainty is a way of avoiding mistakes and responsibility. It is based on the fallacious premise that if no decision is made, nothing can go wrong. Being wrong holds untold horrors to the person who tries to conceive of himself as perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We are all going to make mistakes. It's part of us growing. It's part of us developing. But the uncertainty of making those mistakes, and the uncertainty of not doing it because we're going to appear weak, or we're going to appear that we don't know what we're doing, scares us. So we have to be able to kind of withstand a level of uncertainty in order to grow. we have to step out of the boundaries that we're used to in order to grow. So that uncertainty, we have to be able to deal with it to push forward, okay? And that's where we're going to achieve success. So the next one is resentment. When the failure type personality looks for a scapegoat or excuse for his failures, he often blames society, the system, life, the breaks. He resents the success and happiness of others because it is a proof to him that life is shortchanging him and he's being treated unfairly. I don't want to say I've ever been like this. I have felt some resentment in the past. And I just feel like for me, it was never I resent that person because they are where I want to be or they've got success that I want to have. But I've always tried to see it as I'm resentful because they're doing so well to the point that I'm going to turn it on its head and I want that more and more now. So it's always been turned on its head into a positive rather than a negative. I'd never like to blame life. I'd never like to blame the kind of inadequacies of myself, and it's never anyone else, it's always ourselves for where we are. Okay, so we shouldn't feel resentful of life or bad decisions by other people. It's always our own doing. So the resentment side of things we have to take charge of. Okay, we have to take charge of our own life. So the last one was emptiness. And many people acquire the outward symbols of success. The cars, the clothes, the houses, whatever it may be, all the material stuff. But when they go to open the long sought for treasure chest, they find it empty. It is as if the money they have strained so hard to attain turns to counterfeit in their hands. And the big thing here is, this is basically highlighting that it doesn't matter whether you're achieving success if you're doing it for the wrong reasons. If you're just chasing the money, if you're just chasing the cars, the women, the houses, it's going to bring you some level of happiness, but it is a means to then kind of push on to set new goals, drive for more internal happiness rather than external materialistic items. Okay, enjoy those items, but they're not going to be the only thing that is going to bring you happiness. Okay, because it's just going to be empty. It's going to turn to counterfeit in your hand, like it says in the book. So make sure that you're goal striving for you to be better rather than chasing the material items. And this is the failure mechanism, and we're trying to turn this on its head so it's a positive for us, not a negative. But now we're aware of these 7 things, we can start to analyse ourselves and look at ourselves just a little bit more, that we can actually start to make more progress. Right folks, we are on to chapter number 10, and it's the last one for this episode. So, Psycho-cybernetics, if you are liking this book, I highly recommend downloading it. Download it and listen to it. Like, order it and read it, because I found it very inspiring to read it, make notes, circle stuff, highlight stuff, and be able to kind of take out the content and give it to you. So last chapter for this one is how to remove emotional scars or how to give yourself an emotional facelift. Okay, and this was a really big chapter, so I hope that take the time to really understand this and get the information from it that I'm going to give you now, and start to make progress, because the last 5 we're going to push on and we're going to get you to start to see forward rather than looking at just what is going on. Okay, so number 1, emotional scars. Many people who have inner emotional scars have never suffered physical injuries. These people have been hurt or injured by someone in the past. To guard against future injury from that source, they form a spiritual callus, an emotional scar to protect their ego. They've been hurt by someone and they don't ever want to feel that hurt again. So they put up like a barrier, they build that callus. And I'm wearing a t-shirt right now that is called scar tissue. And we have those scars physically, but we also have them emotionally and we have them mentally. And what we've got to try and do is break it down, because what we're going to hear in a minute is we need to be a little bit vulnerable, and we need to be able to not build emotional scars that are going to ward us off from other people, because that is just going to build a wall and we're just not going to be allowing other people to come into our lives. Okay, so being very wary with the emotional scars that we may be forming that are causing us to pull away from certain people. Okay, the second one, building emotional walls. This scar tissue, however, not only protects them from the individual who originally hurt them, it protects them from all other human beings. An emotional wall is built through which neither friend nor foe can pass. And I said it a minute ago. We end up building these walls and we keep people out that could be really, really key to our growth and our development. And unfortunately, because we've been hurt before, we've built those scars and those walls that don't allow people in. And it's only going to hold us back from our happiness and our life being fulfilled. So we've got to be really wary that we're not actually stopping people that could come into our life and be a help to us, that we're not allowing them in. Okay, so the third one was the character or the characteristics of a self-fulfilled person. So they see themselves as liked, wanted, acceptable, and able individuals. They have a high degree of acceptance of themselves as they are. They have a feeling of oneness with others. They have a rich store of information and knowledge. And the big thing here is, if you're self-fulfilled and you have a high degree of self-acceptance of yourself, people will feel that within you, and they will feel accepted around you because you accept other people, because you accept yourself. And it's only when you accept yourself will you accept other people fully into your life. So try and live by the characteristics that I've just outlined there of someone who is self-fulfilled. Okay. Number 4, 3 rules of immunizing yourself against emotional hurt. Number 1, be too big to feel threatened. And that's all up here. So everything that we've been talking about so far is all up here. So be too big to feel threatened. Number 2, a self-reliant, responsible attitude makes you less vulnerable. Rely on yourself. Be responsible to yourself. That responsible attitude is going to make up who you are. So be strong and it will make you less vulnerable. Number 3, relax away emotional hurts. We have all been hurt in the past. We've all experienced hurt emotionally. Now it is time to accept it and move on. And when we do accept it and when we do move on and when we forgive those people that have hurt us, we are going to be able to move forward, and we're going to be able to realise that, hang on a minute, people are going to try and hurt us. Inadvertently, advertently, they're going to try and hurt us, or they are going to hurt us. Not necessarily try, they are going to hurt us. And unfortunately, we have to be a little bit vulnerable. We have to, because that will allow people in. We will love, we will laugh, and we will live with people. But when we do get hurt, forgive and forget. And finally, is be a little vulnerable. And I kind of said it a minute ago. Again, they're all very much interlinked, but they're very key to us achieving success. So, be a little bit vulnerable. To live creatively, we must be willing to be a little vulnerable. We must be willing to be hurt a little, if necessary, in creative living. We have to accept the fact that we are going to get hurt a little bit by people that we love. And being vulnerable with those people is going to allow us to live creatively. It's going to allow us to put ourselves out there, maybe do a video, a podcast, whatever it may be, to connect with people and bring them information. And the insecurity we may have about ourselves, the fact that I'm not the most accomplished reader, doesn't mean I'm a bad person. It just means that I struggle with reading, and me doing this video actually forces me to be a little bit vulnerable in front of you people watching or listening, and I have to put that aside, because the content that I'm reading and the content that I can create to help people may be enough that one person watches or listens to this and takes something away from it, and that means more to me than the ability or the fact that my reading isn't 100% or it's not perfect. The way I deliver something may not be brilliant, but it's content that can help people that I want to do. So I have to be a little bit vulnerable in order to do the video or the podcast to help someone. And I have to put that aside, because otherwise I'm not doing what I want to do, and I'm not living creatively to help people. And it's a spiral, it's a circle, it connects. So we have to be a little bit vulnerable. So that is the end of chapter number 10. And the one thing that I picked up on right at the end was, remember, you make mistakes. Mistakes don't make you. We're all going to make mistakes, but it's the ability to push past them, accept them, be a little bit vulnerable, do what we want, live creatively, and live by the success and the failure mechanisms, understand them, know them, and we can grow. So I hope you liked this video. I hope you liked the podcast. If you've listened to the first two parts now and you're enjoying the Psycho-cybernetics, I do recommend getting it on hard copy or get it on Audible, audiobooks, and listen through all the other information, because this is only the bits that I'm picking up on, and you may pick up on something different that actually helps you grow and develop. So I hope you've enjoyed it so far. Do go ahead and like the video, like the podcast, share the videos. Comment any questions or anything that you have. Leave us a rating and review, because I really appreciate all the support that I'm getting, just from video, from the messages, from the reviews on the podcast. And I'm just going to keep continuing to bring you content, and it's all I ever want to do is help people. So if there's anything you need and you want to hear from me, please do go ahead and let us know, and we'll put that content out for you. I like to finish my podcast with a quote, and it is: your mind will quit before your body does. If you can change your mind, you can change your body. I'll see you all and speak to you all next week. Peace out.